I call him the Big Easy.
Okay, good evening. This is my. Let me actually start by praying, and I'll get started. Father, we come before you, and we want to pause and acknowledge that you are the giver of life, and that life is a gift, and we gladly and we accept the gift. Lord, we are contingent beings through and through. And every heartbeat that we have is a reflection of your grace, and your love, and your kindness. Thank you for life. Thank you for your Son. And I pray that tonight you would encourage your people. In Jesus' name, amen. I'm going to just start off tonight by reading just a couple verses. Psalm 7:17 says, I will give to the Lord the thanks due to his righteousness, and sing praise to the name of the Lord the Most High. And then in 9:1 and 2, I will give thanks to the Lord with my whole heart. I will tell of all your wonderful deeds. I will be glad and exult in you. I will sing praise to your name, O Most High. Verse 11, sing praises to the Lord who dwells in Zion. Declare his deeds among the peoples. And that's essentially what I'm going to do tonight, is to declare his deeds among the people. And I think that it's good and healthy and important to publicly declare things that God does. We need to hear these things. If you've heard me here before, I usually sort of bring in some topic that I've been thinking on and sort of fly over it at 30,000 feet and try to say a couple things about it. But today what I'm going to do is more just give a testimony, if you don't mind. So it's not really a preachy sermon type thing. I'm just going to give a testimony. And I'm going to start it off by reading something to you that I wrote, well, it's been a while now, to introduce the topic. And the reason I feel confident that I could read this to you is I've had some of your people in my classes that I teach at LMU. So I know that you're literate. I know that you're serious. I know that the written word isn't spooky to you. Okay, it's more than 142 characters. So I believe in your ability to listen and just do it, okay? And if it doesn't totally make sense, that's fine. The gist of what I'm saying will. And I'm just going to read it, and then I'll make some remarks on it. Again, I wrote this roughly a decade ago. And it's, here it goes. Now, it's a page and a half, so I need you to just try to focus, okay? This is something that I feel I have to do in order to motivate this topic. It's pretty natural for people to look to particular moments in their lives that define them. That whole existence precedes essence thing has gotten pretty out of hand. But there are moments that leave indelible marks on the wetware upstairs. I guess it must have been the millennium. Just imagine the probability of actually living when the calendars change, not just from one year to the next, or even from one century to the next, but actually from one millennium to the next. I'm aware that it's merely a convention, but nonetheless an exciting one, especially considering that world civilization was about to be undermined by a computer bug. Quick, get the guns and the gold. That was supposed to be funny, but I guess it wasn't. Okay. The force of history actually moved my dad to put a card in an envelope and send it across the Atlantic. It arrived on the steps of the fourplex that I live in and made it to my desk. Not only did I receive a card, but a box of Swiss chocolates. They had designs on them of local villages in the surrounding areas where my dad resides. I've been to those villages. Sure, they're pretty, but they're in Switzerland, so they're neutral. I haven't met very many exciting neutral people in my life. Mom, I'm excited for you to meet my new girlfriend. She has all the characteristics that I look for in a girl. She's so neutral. I think we'll get married someday. I'm actually a believer in the written word, and 2 words in the card deflated me. I was actually so filled with excitement upon receiving the card that I actually missed the severity of the 2 words the first time I read them. Love, Roger. In my first 14 years of life, when I lived with my dad, I never once came home and said, "Hi, Roger." Did I have to be taught that? I don't recall, but it seems safe to say that this goes against the way of the earth. Dads aren't Rogers, but Rogers are dads. The relationship is not symmetrical, but I'm not the one who violated it. He did. If only the card had ended with the words, "Love, Dad." As I write, I am less than 2 months away from my 28th birthday. Add 14 and 14 together and you get the sum total of years that I've been given so far. The first half is the Love, Dad half, and the second half is the Love, Roger half. The saddest day of my life was the day that found the Archimedean point that divided these 2 halves when his plane was called and the earth moved. Airports. What is sadder than an airport? On that day, I was 14. My mom, dad, 2 sisters, and I drove to LAX to see him off. Little did I know that it would be such a fateful day. My life was now divided, and my dad would become a man called Roger. The thing that makes the divide both confusing and painful is the willfulness. There was a choice involved, and it was not made in my favor. Had my dad died of natural causes back in December 1989, I would have been devastated. However, the death that he died was a willful one, a neglect of his only son. I was not the one who let go. He did. The fact is, I love my dad and remember him with the kind of love that only a son can have for his father. I had strange hobbies as a kid, and he embraced them. I was a magic geek. In fact, I was president of the Fountain Valley High School Magic Club. We had 2 members. When I longed for hair to grow under my arms, my dad did as well. 1989. The fixed point and the leverage needed to move the earth was found, and someone pulled the lever. The world was rejoicing over the fall of the evil empire, and I was wondering why my mom was hanging out with another man. I think it should be illegal, or at least a highly frowned upon social convention for adults to ever use the words boyfriend or girlfriend after the age of, let's keep it fairly uncontroversial and just say 40, the big 40. Not only does it not make any sense, it just sounds so weird when spoken by adults with kids, no hair, and a love for the breadsticks served at the Olive Garden. After the age of 40, I suggest that adults get a bit cleverer. When around that little guy, just spell out the words rather than say, as this is spelled out, "Can I stay the night?" Yes, after, add the appropriate name, goes to sleep. I forgot that trick's been used. Learn a different language and try it in that dialect. Please just spare the sons and daughters the world over from having to hear their parents use the word boyfriend or girlfriend around a new and improved significant other. I really don't think this is too much to ask, and it will alleviate a lot of unnecessary awkwardness from an already awkward situation. I'm not complaining. This is not my treatise against the stacked deck that is my life. Everyone's deck is stacked. I'm 6'5". I can comfortably see over the heads of 99% of the world's population. I might have some pretty stiff competition from residents of Africa, but China, Mexico, Yemen, Italy, Indonesia, Qatar, and the globe over offer me a bird's eye view of their brown, bald, black, and blonde heads. It all depends on the way in which we read the cards. I have a great view at concerts, but a sore back when I go home at the end of the night. The fact is, no one wants to admit that the playing field is inherently and brutally unequal. If they did, then grounds for complaint might actually be justified, and hugging lawyers with an office the size of my apartment, furnished with matted posters that say such things as leadership or endurance, would be okay. If that kind of situation is not a paradigm shift, then I don't know what is. But time is short. I'm approaching 28, and my dad is now 60 years old. 4 years away from the question raised by Sir Paul, will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64? I never really liked that song. Strangely, I'm more drawn to songs like Don't Let Me Down. However, if the sentiment expressed in When I'm 64 were uttered by Roger within the next 4 years, I might change my mind, embrace the quirkiness of Sir Paul, and fly to Switzerland with a supersized Big Mac in hand. That's right, 4 years away from the arbitrary milestone sung about by the baby-faced Beatle. According to recent statistics, life expectancy for American males is 74 years old. That gives me another 14-year block to see how things will fare between my dad and me. Will he remain Roger, or will the prodigal father return from his Swiss holiday and embrace his children? We've been waiting, holding on to ribbons and bows. We've been waiting, dressed up in your favorite clothes. Well done on your listening, I think. I was looking down. My dad never did. My dad's still Roger. Unfortunately, that's the case. My dad is still a mystery to me, and that's just life. However, I continue to grow as a person, and at some point in time, when my dad left, it sort of coincided with my becoming a Christian. I wasn't raised in a Christian home, and when I became a Christian and my dad left at the same time, I was very, very disoriented and confused and sad and troubled. And I came across the verse, and I think it's the Proverbs that says, or it might be the Psalms, it says that God is a father to the fatherless. And in many respects, I was fatherless. And as I struggled as a confused kid, I often prayed that, God, your word says that you're a father to the fatherless, and I really need you to be a father right now to me. I missed my dad, and I missed him a lot. His leaving didn't make any sense because he was a good dad when he was around. And at some point, I'd say that my dad, or God being a father to me, was okay. It wasn't really enough, because you can't shoot hoops with God, right? I couldn't get a hug from God, and I wanted to be hugged by my dad. I wanted to play basketball with my dad. I wanted a physical, tangible expression of fatherhood. And so on the one hand, God was helping me, and I prayed and I cried. But on the other hand, God is a spirit, and I wanted a physical dad. So fast forward, life continues to go on. I've been married for quite a while, and my wife and I start saying, let's have children. Let's have some children. And without going into a great amount of detail, it was hardly automatic, and in fact, it was a real struggle. And I'm 6 years around that time. And at that point in my life, I lived pretty close to a place in Long Beach called the Bluff. And I would walk across the ocean, and I'd walk down to the bluff, and there's a bike path, and you're sort of down below, so it's relatively isolated. And I would go on walks. I would go on weekly walks, and I would pray for a child. And I would pray, and I would pray, and I would pray. And I could say, without any exaggeration, I have never in my life prayed for something more than for a child. And the answer was silence on God's end, and failure, and tragedy. But I continued to pray, and I recall the verse in Proverbs 13:12 says that hope deferred makes the heart sick. And I felt heart sick And I just thought to myself, I don't understand this. How is it the case that I was sort of willingly and voluntarily orphaned? And here I am, and I want to have a child. And my motive, I checked my heart. My motives seemed so pure because all I wanted to do was redeem what was broken. I wanted to finish the job. I wanted my own kid so I could redeem what I suffered from. And I thought about Matthew 7, and you think about this passage, and it sounds so nice when you read it, but sometimes it might butt up against life. And you've heard this passage, but in Matthew 7 it says, Matthew 7:7 it says, "Ask, and it will be given you. Search, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be open for you. For everyone who asks receives, and everyone who searches finds. And for everyone who knocks, the door will be opened. Is there anyone among you who, if your child asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if the child asks for a fish, will give him a snake? If you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good things to those who ask?" And I kind of felt like I was being given a stone and a snake. So I continued to live my life, and I continued to struggle. And I genuinely reached a point in my life where I gave up. And there was about a month in my life where I remember thinking, fighting and sort of clenching. And in fact, I remember one time a friend was walking with me, and he said, "Well, Eric, you've been orphaned, so why don't you adopt? You know what it's like to be orphaned, and you'd be great to take someone in." And I do think that's a good thing, but I didn't want to hear that. I just thought, no, just like, oh. And so there was about a month of my life, a real poignant month in my life, where I can remember thinking, just not willing to release the fact that it could be the case that God said, "You know what, Eric? My answer to your request is no." And for a month, I was like, I'm not willing to allow that to be the case. How dare you say no to such a pure and innocent request? Are you saying that not only have I been delivered a great heartache from my own father, but I'm not even going to be given the opportunity to make it better, to afford some kind of redemption? And so I would say there was about a month period of my life where my fists were like this. No is not an option, not my economy. And then on one of the nights that I was walking, I remember thinking, okay. And I opened my hands, and with as much heartache as I can imagine, I said, "God, I'm okay if you say no. And I'm going to trust that you're good, even though it doesn't make any sense to me right now. I'm just going to trust that your no is still does not in any way undermine your goodness." And I let go. And life went on. I continued to go on my walks, and I continued to pray. Every day of my life, I prayed. Christmas came around, and our church had this service where they left these sort of little Christmas tree ornaments in the chairs. And the theme of that season for our church was What are you longing for, and what are you waiting for? And we were told to write that down on a piece of paper, and then there was, after the church, there was some Christmas trees in the back, and we were just to hang the ornament on the trees. It was anonymous, etc. And my ornament came around, or I pulled it out from under my seat, and I wrote, a son. And I asked for a son, not because I think boys are better than girls. I asked for a son because I was a son, and I knew what it was like to be abandoned. I wanted a son, and I had the audacity or boldness to say, a son. I was specific. And I hung the ornament on the tree, and I didn't tell anybody. And my wife is the worship leader at my church. And so they sort of gathered the ornaments at some level, or just picked out sort of 20 or 30 of the phrases that people left on the trees, and they wrote them down. And then the next Sunday, during a part of the worship, where they cast what people are longing for, what the people are waiting for. You know, that I'd get along with my mom, that my dad would stop drinking, that I wouldn't be fearful anymore, these kinds of things. And then up there, a son. And after the service, I said to my wife, hey, Beth, my phrase was picked. And she said, oh, really? And I said, yeah, it was a son. It was a son. And again, life goes on. And then, lo and behold, at some point in time, my wife conceived. And my wife and I, she conceived, and it was successful. And we decided not to find out what the child was. And on November 30th, I had a child. And my wife labored in the home. We went to the hospital, and I'm there. And it was a November evening. It was a small hospital, and it felt like the world's concentration was just looking down at that one moment, because when it's the pushing stage of labor, that's when the crazy stuff happens, and lights come in there, and everybody's looking down, and it feels like the world's attention is there. And the baby was delivered, and I heard one of the nurses say, it's a boy. I didn't cry, and I thought I would, and I cut the umbilical cord. And then you're just kind of on your own. And sorry, I'm trying to gather myself. The next morning, we were in the hospital, and my wife was in bed, and I was on a chair, and my son was in the little sort of plastic thing that they put him in. And when we were deciding what to name our child, we had a short list, and at one point in time, I was just looking up what the meanings of the names are. And on the short list of names was one of the names that I had chosen was Simon. And when I was looking up what Simon means he has heard. And honest to God, I've never asked God for something more in my life than a son. And Simon means he has heard. And I was in the hospital. My wife was sleeping and my son was sleeping. And I was a seminary student at the time, and I was taking Hebrew. And I had finals coming up. And so I was studying Hebrew while they were asleep. And the passage that I was studying was Psalm 23. And I was, working on parsing the verbs and trying to memorize the vocabulary and everything. And at one point I just stopped and I read Psalm 23. And pieces of that really, really famous psalm struck me. He restores my soul, for you are with me. And you anoint my head with oil, and my cup overflows. And in the course of 20 years, where I maintained a relationship with God, as I was reading that passage, and I was looking at my wife sleeping in the bed, and I was looking at my son asleep, I felt as if God's actual physical hand was placed on my back, and he said, "Can you feel me now, Eric? Can you feel that I am a tangible God, and I am a father to you?" Can you guys show the picture of that morning? Now that was 4 years ago, but I didn't. When I struggle with my faith and doubt, I look at my kids and I see life that came ex nihilo, out of nothing. And I can't help but see God when my story is when I think about my story. And I don't know if I'll ever in my life get another time where God just says, "Look, here I am." But hopefully that was enough. And to this day, I still thank God every single day for the kindness that he showed to me and the way in which he very, very tangibly and physically revealed his love to me. And in fact, he doubled down. I got a daughter too. So, and she's crazy. And I love her just as much as I love my son. And anyways, that's all I wanted to share with you. I wanted to declare to the people of God God's kindness and God's goodness. And that's healthy to do. So, Mr. Nazarian is also, Mr. Michael Zachary Nazarian is on the verge of having a kid. I believe the due date is February 6th, which is the birthday of Ronald Wilson Reagan. Yeah. Anyways, I look forward to you also experiencing of that. And that's all I wanted to share. But I guess if you have any questions, I can answer a few questions. And I do hope that you are encouraged at some level. Does anybody have any questions? I won't hold your Dodger hat against you. Yeah.
I feel you in the situation you step in.
Yeah.
Because I was living with my grandparents all my life.
Yeah.
I never had my father or anything. So how you dare to like get used to it, like, because always you need a father, like.
Yes.
Believe it or not, you say, oh, I don't need one, but like,
Yes.
signing hard, like, really, really deep and scream, like, I need a father.
Yes.
So how you get like to that, like, oh.
Well, I don't think you do get used to it. I think that I'm not used to it. I'm a grown man with my own kids, and I can still be flattened with sadness if I think about my dad, and I miss him, and I wish he was in my life. So I don't think you get over it. I think that it's just one of those tragic things in life that you carry with you, and friends and neighbors and things like that can help, community, but it's a scar. It's not going away. That's not the most sort of sugary answer, but I think it's the true one.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your favorite thing to do, your pastime, when you hang out with your son?
What's my favorite to do with my son? Probably watch him sleep. No. I mean I do. There's a beauty in seeing your children sleep. Sorry, you didn't seem very satisfied with that answer. What do I like to do with my son? I can't think of a favorite thing apart from I don't know. I just like being with him. There's nothing really that stands out. I guess I just like watching him and being in awe. Yeah. What's that? Okay. En garde. Okay. Yes.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
If you love your son since when you were a son,
Yes.
you really love him and you love him in your heart.
Yes.
And do you have more time with him every day with him?
Do I have
Like every day with your son.
am I with my son every day?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, although today I won't be.
Yeah.
I drove straight from work to here.
Yeah.
The sacrifices I make. But I'll go look at him. I'll go look at him when I get home. I will. Sorry?
I'm also the son too.
Yes. Yeah.
When I was a kid, when I was a baby, my dad loved me.
Yes.
And I know how you feel. being
Yes.
Dad.
Yes.
See, my father left me, but my mom always raised me
Yes.
by myself. And
Yes.
I have God in my life. And I'm thankful that He's there
Yes.
in your life, and I'm going to pray for you tonight that God will be with you in all the time.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah.
For you personally, how did God fill in the gaps where your dad was absent?
I think it's hard for me to say because we don't really know. How do I answer this question? We don't really know what's not there sometimes. Does that make sense? So maybe there were ways in which God was with me that I actually don't know, that I'm sort of spiritually or cognitively close to, where there was a great deal of God's fatherhood to me that I didn't really know. But no, I mean, so I guess I guess, yeah, at some level, that how is God present with us? In many respects, God's present to us through his people. So the people of God have always been, sustained me at some level. They've been the hands and feet of Christ, so to speak. But I'm not entirely sure, except I just, I had to trust that God heard my prayers and that God was with me, and that God was just as heartbroken as I was, that God actually mourned. The Bible says to weep with those who weep and mourn with those who mourn. I think that God does the same thing. That God is an empathetic God, and we see that at some level, well, not at some, but at the highest level in the incarnation. God wasn't like, oh, I don't really care about the suffering of the world. In fact, he went in and suffers with us and suffered for us. So I don't know if that's a good answer or not, but there's a shot. Yep.
What do you think the biggest blessings that your son is going to have because of the struggles that you've gone through not having your father around?
I tell my kids all the time they don't know how screwed they are because I love them so much. It's like, you're just so screwed. I love you so much. Yeah, too much love. Too much love, probably. No, yeah, I don't think my kids are going to ever doubt that their dad loves them. I don't think there'll be a moment of their lives where they won't know that I love them and that I'm for them. Yeah.
Is there a moment in your life when you always remember not having the dad? Is that something that is always with you, the thought of not having him?
Every day of my life? No.
No?
No. I think that it's like...
Got over that?
No, I didn't get over it. I think like any loss, a lot of times people who actually experience death say that it comes in waves, right? There's moments where life's normal, and then there's waves where it hits you. And I think that obviously it doesn't hit me as much as it used to. When I was in high school, it was really hard for me. And then when I was in college, it started to wane, and then I grew into my own man, and I have a family of my own. So now it hits me in different ways. It hits me where I see my kids, and I think, gosh, I wish that he could be with them and experience how awesome they are, So, Mike, how are we doing? You want to, whatever you want to do, my brother. I don't know what time it is. What's that? Okay. Yes, sir.
Has the thought crossed your mind that you're raising your children to leave home?
To leave home?
And if so, what do you plan to release out into the world?
That's an incredible question. It's a great question. I got a strong element of the dark side in me, so I'll give you a sort of a tragic answer. Your question is tragic, actually. You're saying, are you raising him to leave home? And yes, and in fact, when I think about it, it bums me out. Probably Mebra and Noel could attest to this. I don't know if I said it to their class, but I'll say things to them like, hey, your mom and dad are calling you and they're bugging you and you don't want to talk to them, but it's because they love you and they miss you, so be nice to them, right? But yeah, I mean, if you think about what it means to raise a child, my son's 4, my daughter's almost 2, you only get like a month of utter dependence on you. And then that leaving, that division starts happening from the ability to sort of drink by themselves and then to walk and all these things. They're just small little increments of the distinction that happens. And I think one of the things that's where God's grace is nice is that I guess he sort of prepares you for a while for that to happen. It's not just one like, okay, he's dependent now, she's dependent now. So yes, I do know that my son and my daughter are borrowed, that they belong to the Lord, that my wife and I are the main unit, and that we are hopefully growing children to go out and to represent Christ in the world. So yes, when I think about what I desire to go out there, even before Simon was born, I always prayed, and I still pray this every day, God, I pray that Simon will be a man of wisdom and compassion. For some reason, I want him to have compassion for people, and I want him to have wisdom. And so that's been my prayer, a man of wisdom and compassion. With my daughter, I haven't had as much clarity on what to pray. It hasn't come yet, but right now it's just been that her and Simon would be good friends. That when they're older, you know, like when they're your age, they could have coffee together and things like that, that they'd support each other and that they wouldn't be these like, you know, right? So yeah, but honestly, I think that hopefully what my wife and I model in our home and in our practices will cut through any future cynicism that my kids will experience as a result of growing up in the church. I didn't grow up in the church, so when I came into the church, I thought, oh, wow, this is so cool. Look at these people are so nice, and they get along, and they're kind of goofy and like strange, but I kind of almost envied sort of a church life because I didn't have that. So I'm worried, on the other hand, that my kids are going to grow up in the church and then get bitter and turn on it. Trust me, I went to Fuller Seminary. Most of them are like, evangelicals, I want to distance myself from them. They're mad at their upbringing. So hopefully, hopefully Fullerites don't hear that, but hopefully what my son and daughter will see will be a real, genuine, and sincere faith. So even now, without them knowing, we have somebody in our house every Monday night for dinner that is lonely. And so they're just seeing that, oh, mom and dad invite so-and-so over for dinner and feed him and try to love him. And then that those kinds of practices will shape them in life rather than just teaching them stuff. Discipleship is caught, not taught. That's the Navigators or something like that. All right, last question, Ait? Okay, you already got one. Yeah.
I realize this could sound hostile.
So it could sound what?
This could sound hostile, but
It's all right. I like hostility. I'm a philosophy professor.
so you had mentioned that during your month of part-time that your friend's suggestion that you adopt was
Yes.
you didn't receive it.
Yes. Not the time to hear that exhortation. Yeah.
So did you at any point experience a change of heart towards that?
Yes. My church happens to have over 40 to 50 adopted kids in it. It's a huge ministry in my church, and it's not top down. It's not a program. People are just doing it, and so my wife and I are praying and open to foster and adoption. I don't know if we'll do it. I'm terrified. My wife will do it in a heartbeat. If there were 10 people in here like, I need a home, my wife would be like, let's go, get in here. I would say, well, look, space, whatever. So I told my wife I'm open to it, and I do pray about it. And I said, look, I'll think about it and pray about it honestly and sincerely. So it is definitely something that may happen. Yeah. You're not a hostile man. What's that? Why? Okay. Well, thank you for letting me share. I've always felt very, very comfortable here. And it was Mike Nazarian's birthday yesterday, I think.